As we saw in the Beast Folk ranking, some kinds of monsters can be a double-edged sword. The devils of Dungeons & Dragons take that to the next level, as they are at once so fearsome and iconic, yet often shallow, and to be honest, their lore starts to break down when you put it under scrutiny. Let's start with the devil's shortcomings, then we'll take a look at their upsides, then on to the rankings. As before, this video is based largely on 5th edition, with Monster Manual, Volo's Guide, and Mordenkainen'S Tome being the 3 real source books for monster stats and lore. It's impossible to talk about devils without mentioning demons. Both are fiends and wholly evil, but their key difference is that demons embody chaos and entropy, while devils are law and domination. Demons want to destroy all of existence and return the planes back to raging chaos, while devils want to preserve the planes so that they can be the tyrants. Because of this conflict, demons and devils are locked into eternal war against one another. Demons spawn out of the abyss, so their numbers endlessly renew. Devils, on the other hand, are created from evil mortals who die and go to hell, or from mortals who breach contracts made with devils. Since devils are constantly warring against demons, they must always seek to tempt, manipulate, and take advantage of mortals in order to keep the stock of souls flowing in. Unless killed in their home plane, devils cannot die, and they also don't require food, water, air, sleep. The society of the Nine Hells of Baator is highly structured. Take the harshest aspects of military, politics, and religion, and you get an idea of hell in D&D. There are intrigues, bureaucracy, and of course, lots of war. Now this seems like a good setup for role-playing and storytelling, but once you really consider it, it has some major limitations because it's so unhuman and so one-dimensional. Devils lack many of the crucial ingredients that make people so interesting. Imagine a world without family, no birth, no growing up, no need for food production or basic survival necessities, no mystery of what lies beyond, no inspiration of new self-discoveries, no hopes, no dreams, no friendship, no connection, no love. I could go on, but the bottom line is that if you spend much time in the Nine Hells, it can get really boring because so many important parts of the human experience are either lacking or rendered meaningless. There's a piece of art in Mordenkainen'S Tome that perfectly sums this up. A bunch of clones that we don't give a damn about fighting a war that we don't care about. Forever. As in, it never ends. That's right. Read about the Blood War and the Great Dance. One side makes a bit of headway, then the other side reclaims it and makes some progress, then back again. It never ends. Another great example of the problem with devils, and fiends in general, is found in the Elder Scrolls series. From among Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, the lowest rated game is definitely Oblivion. A big reason for this was Oblivion itself. The hell-styled plane is so monotonous and hollow feeling. An interesting contrast was the wonderful expansion to the game, the Shivering Isles, which gave us a much more interesting take on a dark plane. It had human inhabitants and far more in the way of depth and subtlety. If you're interested in using these lawful evil fiends, stick with me for a tour of the denizens of hell. As before, the creatures will be ranked into tiers F through A, and they'll receive ratings in the following 5 attributes: mechanics, style, role-playing, lore, versatility. Note that I'm not including the archdevils in this ranking video. Most of them are actually very interesting, but they deserve their own video. Plus, Mordenkainen'S Tome didn't include the main archdevils of D&D, so we're without their official 5th edition stats and lore for the time being. Without further ado, let's sign in blood on the contract and set sail down the river Styx. The only devil in F tier has a name that I can't even pronounce. Nupperbu? Naperabo? Naparibo? Any way I say it, it sounds lame. It reminds me of a monster from some horror video game. I can't remember which. Maybe Silent Hill or House of the Dead. If someone recognizes it, leave me a comment below. The Naperabo is a lesser lemure, if that's somehow possible. In other words, it's a new arrival in hell. In life, the Nupperboo was a poser who couldn't hang with the truly wicked mofos, and it was just evil through its apathy or laziness. In hell, it's a morbidly obese, naked guy with his eyes and mouth sewn shut. Yet, it has a bite attack. With its mouth sewn closed, whatever. It is blind, nearly mindless, and infested with a cloud of vermin. If you want to use this guy for its freaky factor, go for it, but don't expect too much. Climbing a layer in the hellish landscape, we come to D tier. Here it seems that each monster has some cool aspect, but it suffers from the typical problems of devils. Low role-playing potential, low versatility, and lore that is lacking despite being iconic. The Merregon continues with Mordenkainen's love of strange names for devils, but at least it's better than Nupperboo. It's odd that they don't have a titled name too, like Masked Devil, or how about Legion Devil? Remember Legion Devils? Where in the hells did they go? But wait! Fiendish Codex 2 from 3.5 edition had an entry for Legion Devil Merregon. Why doesn't 5th edition refer to them as Legion Devils? Is it because the developers completely reskinned them? Stranger still is the fact that these crucial devils, that apparently form the bulk of Hell's armies, were not included in the actual monster manual, but have come out years later in the edition, just like what happened in 3.5. Also, why don't the Merregon of 5th edition have a devilish appearance? If you saw this art alone, without knowing already what it was, would you guess that it was a devil? It actually looks like the zombies from the Theros block of Magic the Gathering. Don't get me wrong, it is a cool look in and of itself, I do like it. But it's so weird to suddenly do such a drastic reskin of the base foot soldier devil so late into D&D's history. And all we have is this one piece of art to represent it. Were you a rotten scumbag who finally kicked the bucket? Welcome to Hell, where you incarnate as an actual scumbag. A lemure is a miserable flesh blob who leads a tortured existence until it manages to perform some deed worthy of promotion into an imp or other lesser devil. I'm honestly not sure how any lemure could ever promote, as they are CR0 monsters with 1 intelligence, a 5 dexterity, and a 15-foot move speed. Maybe a bunch of lemures could gang up on some super weak target, but even then, it would just be a matter of unit ratios and dumb luck, hardly worthy of promotion due to merit. Well, hey, this is half-baked devil lore we're talking about here. The lemure's only saving grace is its terrifying style, which actually is more reminiscent of undead. The melting and oozing damned soul is quite effective. So, overall, it's a monster that fills an important role in the D&D world, but very simplistic and flat. The Barbed Devil is the first in this ranking that actually has intelligence and personality. It's known to be greedy and covetous to the extreme, and they take on any fight when treasure or reward is on the line. And going through the entries of devils, you see that each kind has such personality trait descriptions, in a similar way that dragons do. So I guess that when a devil promotes and transforms into a new kind, its personality and desires change into a standardized profile. In the rigid framework of the Nine Hells, a devil has no identity of its own. Its soul is just a battery that powers clone shells. Barbed Devils are the security guards of the Nine Hells, keeping watch with their expertise and perception. In combat, they have relatively straightforward claw and tail attacks, and they can throw fire for a ranged attack. It's somewhat decent. The Bone Devil is a malicious taskmaster of lesser devils. It's fueled by envy and contempt, longing for promotion, yet at the same time delighting in seeing others get demoted. This is a recurring theme with devils, but I really don't get their petty infighting and office space type dramatics. Why would devils gloat so much over others getting demoted when there are demon hordes that constantly need to be driven out of the Nine Hells? Not to mention the devil's whole conquest of the plains goal would probably function better without them spiting themselves. Old Boney himself is another devil that looks kind of like an undead, basically a big spiny skeleton with insect wings and a scorpion tail. I personally prefer the variant that wields the hooked polearm. In terms of combat abilities, the Bone Devil is nothing too special, Basically a straight up brute type that uses direct melee combat. The highway to hell is a bumpy ride, and we've already seen quite a mix of pros and cons when it comes to devils. In C tier, we have more monsters that are all cool in some ways, but still fairly lacking in other aspects. The shock troops of the Nine Hells are the Bearded Devils. This one fights with a serrated glaive that inflicts festering wounds, and its beard has a poisonous attack. That's right, a poison beard. I give this monster a high score in style for its uniqueness. A beard attack is really one of a kind. In 5th edition and 4th edition, the beard is composed of snake-like growths, or green tubes socketed into purple skin. But in older editions, it really was a beard. Beyond its interesting mechanics and style, this monster is just a very simple and straightforward aggressive fighter. Hell is not all fire and brimstone. There are a couple of layers that actually get quite frigid. Here we can find the Ice Devil. It's an insect-looking monster who serves as the middle management in Devil Society. They torment and antagonize lesser devils while coveting the positions of pit fiends. And they fight without end. So once again, the typical devil stuff that is moderately compelling, but narrow in scope. The Ice Devil's Ice Wall and Spear both have really cool effects. Definitely the best part of this monster. Oddly, the Spear is presented as a variant option, but whatever. The tactical challenges that these combat options present are sure to make the fight interesting, so I give props to old Frostybug for that. Okay, picture this. A fiend with horns, wings, and a pitchfork. Sound familiar? Sound like the most generic devil appearance ever? Because it is. Here we have the Horned Devil. Even its name is commonplace, as nearly every devil's horned. It's just sort of a main characteristic of the devil, otherwise it's just a winged goblin. Now this style is iconic, and it's not bad at all. It's just nothing to get excited about. Anyhow, the Horned Devils are the lowest rank of the Greater Devils, and essentially function as the airborne infantry of the Nine Hells. They're described as extremely lazy, which I suppose is relating to the sin of sloth, but it's pretty odd considering how powerful they are and the immensely ambitious nature of Devil Society. Their tails cause an infernal wound, just like the Bearded Devil's glaive, and they can throw fire just like the Barbed Devil. The Horned Devil is effective enough overall, but nothing really stands out as very interesting. The Spine Devil is reminiscent of the Imp, as it's smaller than most devils, and it is a flying messenger or spy. It's also like a less powerful Horned Devil, as it is a flying, pitchfork-wielding devil that can also throw fire attacks in the form of burning spines. This monster again is nothing too amazing, but overall decent enough. Its coolest aspects is its bit of potential for role-playing and versatility. Instead of a narrow aggro fighter like most devils, it's a winged messenger, which gives us hope for it to be used in plots and interactions and stories. You know, the things that make it a role-playing game and not just a dice-rolling war game. One wacky thing I noticed was how the monster manual refers to the Spine Devil as a kind of spy, yet it has no sneak abilities, not even proficiency in the stealth skill. Right in the middle of C tier, we have a monster that you probably expected to be higher in this ranking. The Pit Fiend. The best thing it has going on are its combat abilities, which include a few good spells and a hardcore poisonous bite. Other than that, it's a pretty generic devil. Even its name is generic. Pit Fiend. Aren't all devils fiends from the pits of hell? Look at this guy, and think what is actually unique or compelling about its style. It's a red fiend with wings, tail, horns, fangs, claws. It's powerful, evil, has a superiority complex. Yeah, it's just a generic devil. Effective enough, but nothing outside the typical stereotypes. While analyzing the Pit Fiend, I thought about the old school magic card, Lord of the Pit. It's a 7/7, which back in the day was enormous. Even later iterations of the art show how massive this guy is, how he truly appears as a force of epic proportions. Then we get to the D&D Pit Fiend, who's no bigger than an ogre. I really wish he would have been a bigger size category. In the end, the Pit Fiend simply goes on to prove to us how a high challenge rating does not necessarily mean a higher ranking. The Chain Devil, I must admit, is one of my personal favorite devils. I wanted to rate it higher, but an objective analysis exposes its weak points in its generic, simple lore and low versatility. Now, of course, a good DM can bring any monster to life, give it a new expression or a new way of existing in the game. But this video is not about DM skills, rather the monsters themselves as presented in the books. On the positive side, the Chain Devil has a unique, wickedly cool style and some really fun mechanics. The jump into B tier is always a very satisfying one. We move on from monsters that have major shortcomings or merely decent design, and we encounter those that are truly above average. Chugging along out of the flames of hell is another personal favorite of mine, the Hellfire Engine. It is a giant infernal construct that is semi-intelligent, a war machine created for doom and destruction. Its attacks are all about as badass as it gets. It can run over and crush enemies, shoot huge sprays of bone-melting acid, lash with a lightning flail, and fire a thunder cannon. The Hellfire Engine is also a soul trap. When it slays someone, the foe's soul is sent to the river Styx, arriving as a lemure. Its versatility is low and would be even lower, but every once in a while the Hellfire Engine goes berserk. It breaks loose and wreaks havoc outside of its typical narrow patterns. It is also worth noting the power downgrade for the Hellfire Engine from 3.5 edition to 5th edition. While it still remains a very high CR monster, it no longer deals such epic amounts of damage. Sometimes I wonder if the designers of 5th edition forget just how incredibly powerful high-level and even mid-level characters are. The archetype of the fallen angel, or the dark angel, is a very compelling one. It represents tragedy, temptation, corruption, and the journey into dark realms. Devils often come across as flat because they're so fully evil. But with the Erinyes, images of good and evil are intertwined, leading to more depth and an immediate curiosity of what her story is. The Erinyes still suffers from some limitation though. It is yet another warrior-type devil, fierce, militaristic, blah blah blah. But at least the human-like aspect of the Erinyes lends well to its ability to exist in scenarios beyond straight combat. The Amnesu are the upper management of the Nine Hells, alongside pit fiends, and are only superseded by the directors and owners, the archdevils. Basically, think of that one boss you hated the most. Fat, rude, arrogant, and you have the Amnesu. It is highly intelligent and a powerfully persuasive creature, despite its repugnant nature. The Amnesu really shines in the mechanics stat, where we find a plethora of abilities, from potent control and damage spells, blinding necrosis, potent supernatural melee attacks, stunning short-term amnesia, and a charm reaction that can redirect opponents' attacks onto other creatures, even their own allies. The Amnesu is up there with monsters like beholders, liches, and vampires, in terms of having a fantastic array of unique and powerful abilities. With identical stat ratings, we have the Orthon, which is basically shoulder to shoulder with the Amnesu in terms of awesome mechanics, but only decent stats otherwise. I still wonder why these devils from Mordenkainen's tome didn't include titled names. Something like Hunter Devil would have been easier to remember and more evocative. The Orthon is a tracker, assassin, and bounty hunter with all kinds of tricks, basically like the Boba Fett of the Nine Hells. It has invisibility, a poison dagger, and a magic crossbow with 6 different magic shot options. Oh, and the Orthon can self-destruct in an explosion when it dies. Though, admittedly, I do prefer the style of 3.5 edition's Maggot Burst. One of the coolest kinds of devils is the Abishai. They are dragon devils, created by Tiamat, from dark souls of those who gained her favor in life. It's a pretty great reward for an evil person, considering how shitty it must be to start off as a lemure. The Abishai include 5 different variations, based on, you guessed it, the 5 major chromatic dragons. They have some really interesting abilities and a fair amount of variability in their ways. A simple way to see it is that each color of Abishai resembles a character class. Black is rogue, blue is wizard, green and red are both like sorcerer fighters, and white is barbarian. My only real criticism is the green Abishai's offensive capabilities, which really just aren't strong enough. The Abishai, despite having a very familiar dragon aesthetic, are unique in that they lie somewhat outside of the typical structure of Devil Society. Even the archdevils rarely call upon them. It seems that only Asmodeus himself can truly challenge Tiamat's authority over the Abishai. At the top of B tier, we have the Narzugon, which I'm going to dub the Hell Knight. They are somewhat reminiscent of the Death Knight, which is a superb undead creature. Like the Death Knight, the Hell Knight was a lawful evil paladin or fighter who now exists in a wickedly powerful form. They ride atop nightmares as steeds, and bathed in hellfire, they function as knight-errants who roam across the Nine Hells or even into other planes, following the orders of their masters. The Hell Knight does lack in versatility like many devils, but its other stats are all good. Similar to the Hellfire Engine, it has the ability to send a slain character's soul to the river Styx as a lemure. That has got to be one of the most twisted and unsettling abilities in all of D&D. Death is harsh enough, but being forced to go to hell is as horrifying as it gets. We have seen the harrowing layers of the Inferno, and now we arrive at A tier, the best of Baator, the heights of hell. But you are in for a surprise. There is only a single devil in A tier. Now I need to emphasize that each individual kind of devil truly is worthy of seeing play, and low-tier monsters in general do fill very important roles in the game. But to reach A tier, you gotta be something really special. Unfortunately, many devils are held back by their narrowness and their simplistic lore. Way back when I made my original top 10 D&D monsters video, I included the Imp on that list, and this little bugger stands the test of time. I'll break it down here. In mechanics, the Imp has flight, shape-changing, invisibility, and a poisonous stinger, as well as a few skill proficiencies. It's good stuff. The Imp's style is even better. It has a somewhat generic appearance, but iconic nonetheless. More than pure appearance though, its style benefits most from its tone as a scoundrel. Tyrion Lannister, Han Solo, Tony Stark, Zorro, Wesley, Jack Sparrow. The scoundrel, or the trickster, is one of the most beloved character types. The Imp's lore is solid, having long held a distinct place in both the D&D world and real-world myths and folktales. The Imp's versatility is also high for a devil, easily existing in various kinds of scenes, with different motivations, different types of approaches, and being visible or even invisible or even appearing in animal form. However, role-playing is the Imp's strongest stat. As spies, messengers, and cohorts, they have all kinds of potential for interesting interactions with the player characters. But what really pushes them above all other devils is the fact that they can be familiars. The Imp's capacity to exist as a player character companion takes it into whole new dimensions and possibilities. The most complex, interesting, and powerful component of Dungeons & Dragons is the characters themselves. If a monster can become part of a character, it has reached a whole new level of existence. So, in reflecting upon the devils, I have to say that they are a classic and worthwhile kind of monster, but not as interesting as I used to think they were. Sure, none of us wants to go to hell. It's like going to the DMV run by drill sergeants. My favorite and most memorable devil moments were ones in which I used them sparingly and injected plenty of personality and story into them. My least favorite were the campaign arcs that featured tons of devil battles and excursions into the Nine Hells. It just got old and stagnant feeling. I also want to take a moment to give a big thank you to all my supporters on Patreon, especially Warser, Adam Wood, Dennis Cropper, Gabrielle Regley, and Abdurrahman Althani. If you want to get some cool rewards like original monsters, NPCs, and maps, head over to my Patreon page. And if you can't join at the moment, still take advantage of my free newsletter. I'll put the link down in the video description. Thanks, as always, for watching, and try not to sign any contracts in blood. May your adventures be many, my friends.